and welcome to another episode of Greedy Keeps, brought to you by Moderately Anonymous MTG. As always, this episode is brought to you by TCG Player. Hit that TCG Player affiliate link in the description to pick up any of the cards that you see in today's video. It's a great way to help out the channel. And thank you to all of our patrons who make great content like this possible. Become a patron and enjoy Patreon-exclusive content, and give direct support to the channel, join our private Discord, and even get your deck featured on the show. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, it helps out a lot to click that like and subscribe button. It's one of the best ways to support the channel, and everyone is highly appreciated. Make sure you visit our merch store to get some official Modanon merch. We've got t-shirts, sweatshirts, crew necks, and more with original Modanon designs. And use our affiliate link with Ink Gaming to pick up an official Modanon playmat. Hi everybody, it is me, Dan, Moderately Anonymous MTG. I am here with the fabled Sage, Sage of Fables. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are here to talk Greedy Keeps about 4-color Omnath. Sage, would you please introduce yourself first off, but then also tell us a bit about the deck and what we're going to be looking at today.
Absolutely, yes. Hi, hello, I'm Sage, pronouns they, them. I'm a professional Magic the Gathering and D&D content creator, and you can find me on everywhere on the internet, on streams, on YouTube channels of both mine and other people's, but you can follow me at Staff of Sage on Twitter as like the biggest place to see what I get up to every heckin' week, because boy, it sure is a lot. Yeah, so I've been playing cEDH since about 2018 and been playing Magic since 2015. And so Omnath is my 4-color baby. I love him so much. And so it is a deck that I built a list for the day this card was spoiled, because originally I actually had the Teamer Omnath. It was a Teamer Omnath food chain and also infinite mana Dockside Deadeye combo deck. And so when 4-color Omnath got spoiled, I was like, oh, I get to add a whole other color to this deck and have a better ETB, basically. And so the principle behind the deck that I took with was actually inspired by Braden, who was, on cEDH Cast at the time. Braden had just made Korvold Dockside Treasure Storm deck, and I thought, as soon as I saw Omnath, oh man, with green and with Emiel and with all these, stuff that we get to do with flickering, this 4-color combination is going to be so good at getting creatures. We're going to make a whole deck around Dockside Extortionist and around creature combos, because creatures are largely unanswered in cEDH for really most of the time. And so, yeah, so that's where I started. I wanted to, at the outset, have this deck maximize the individual card quality for each individual card and have that bring together a very powerful and resilient 4-color strategy, using our commander as a combo outlet in the command zone, and also to give us some mana production too, which is nice. So the main game plan with the deck involves a Dockside Extortionist and Deadeye Navigator, or Dockside Extortionist and Emiel infinite mana combo, which generates infinite treasures by flickering Dockside and having your opponents meet a certain requisite number of artifacts and enchantments on the battlefield, which honestly is a very, very low threshold. And with that, you get to play your commander and then you get to flicker Omnath, you get to draw your entire deck, and from there you have a lot of options of how it is that you want to close the game. My favorite way, personally, is by flickering Dryad Arbor 3 times to deal 4 damage to each of your opponents and each planeswalker they control, flickering Omnath to reset the number of times that Omnath has seen a land, flickering Dryad Arbor, flickering Omnath until all of your opponents are dead. I love beating people to death with a tree. It's really great.
It's really beautiful. I also am a big fan of the Swing Con. And the thing that I do like about the Dockside loops in this deck, as opposed to like Korvold that needs 5 treasures, we're only looking at a minimum of 4 for Emiel, is that correct? And
3 for Deadeye.
Yeah, and 3 for Deadeye, which is like a really reasonable number to get on board. I've definitely been playing Korvold before and had the issue of I need to find my Wishclaw talisman so I can get up to 5 to get this thing going.
Yes, 100%. So a lot of people sort of balked at Deadeye Navigator, being like, wow, what is it, 2011? And I'm like, listen, first of all, we get to, so this whole deck is an evolution style deck, which is both, maximizing individual card quality and also referencing the card Eldritch Evolution, and we get to sack our commander to Eldritch Evolution to get Deadeye Navigator onto the battlefield, which is so easy. So it's incredibly easy. And then also because of Phantasmal Image, Phantasmal Image works with Deadeye Navigator because the Soul Bond trigger does not target. So if your opponent has a Dockside, you get to still do the combo even if yours is wound up in exile, or whatever, or in the graveyard and you can't get it back. And so that's one of the the flexibility that I love, and that's always what I look for in cards. Is I want cards that can fit. I care more about that they fit a number of different roles in the deck rather than just fitting a very specific role and doing it very well. I want more overall flexibility and adaptability, and I think that's why I really have sort of really fallen in love with this deck, is because I'm still finding new ways to win. And with that, so there's the Dryad Arbor line. And then, of course, if you draw your whole deck, you can play all of your creatures. You can do a Finale of Devastation for 1 billion. And then as the backup plan, there's, of course, the Breach lines, because we do get to have our wonderful 3-card Breach pile with Intuition, including Savin's Reclamation, to make it super easy and sometimes can lead to very simple, very fast turn 2 wins.
All right, well, let's start taking a look at some hands. So we've got our first one here, and it's got no mana, so I'm going to assume that this is a ship.
Oh, yes.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look
Easy
at our
ships.
second 7 here. So second 7, we've got Stomping Grounds, Verdant Catacombs, Bloodstained Mire, Delay, A Blasphemous Act, Mystical Tutor, and Brainstorm. What do we think about this hand?
It's slow. There's no fast mana in this hand. On a second 7, so we have a Brainstorm and a Fetch Land, so we can try and fix our draws. We have a Mystical Tutor, and not much else going on. So looking at this, I would definitely mull it. We have, like I said, the whole point of this deck is to have incredibly high card quality. So you can mull very, very aggressively with this deck. I easily go down to 4 card hands are still very, very keepable. Especially because, we run Wheel of Fortune, Mana Crypt, you just get a fresh 7. It's not that big of a deal. And we do run quite a bit of interaction. So generally, the kind of hands that I look for in this deck are 2 tutors, either a mystical tutor or 2 creature tutors, because the things that we are primarily tutoring for are things to get our creatures into play, because it is primarily a creature combo deck. The thing that is sort of frustrating being Sans Black is that we often have to tutor for tutors. So for Mystical Tutor, it's often going to be Mystical Tutor for an Eladamri's Call, Mystical Tutor for Finale of Devastation to go get your Dockside. And really the thing is that you want is you either want Dockside in your opening hand, or you want a way to get it before turn 3 and to be able to play it. And then also, we do need fast mana. So this is going to be a ship.
Yeah, we do have the ability to change up the constitution of our hand quite a bit here with this Brainstorm, especially given the fact that we have 2 fetches, although we're going to need to use one of them to get our blue source, so it just puts a lot of weight into that Brainstorm. It seems like we can be going for something a lot more aggressive here. Let's
Definitely.
take a look at our 6. So for 6, we've got Dockside Extortionist, Winner, Chicken Dinner, Avacyn's Pilgrim, Mana Vault, Horribly Awry, the Sage special, counters a target creature spell of CMC 4 or less and exiles instead of going to graveyard. And then we've got Windswept Heath, Flooded Strand, and Mental Misstep. So what do we think of this one? This seems like a really good opener.
This is okay.
I guess it lacks action, huh?
Yeah, it doesn't have any way to generate more card velocity. And because we have Omnath in the command zone, not a Thrasios and a Bruce, for example, we need to look for either 2 tutors or mana and a card advantage engine, or preferably a card advantage engine and a tutor, and some way to land them before turn 3. So this, looking at it, is okay. If I were playing into a Staxier pod, I might consider keeping this, because I have, with the Mental Misstep, I have something. So if I were keeping this at a 6, I would bottom one of the fetch lands. We've got plenty of mana. I would, bottom a fetch land. I would keep the Mental Misstep in order to hit an early Deafening Silence, because I think that costs just 1 white, right? And then having that Horribly Awry, being able to answer Stax creatures. Actually, I'd probably bottom the Mana Vault and keep the 2 fetch lands. So if I were playing into a really grindy Staxy pot, I would keep this. But if I'm going against other mid-range or faster decks, I would not keep this. I would look for a better 5.
So So to talk actually about that mana vault for a second, so this is a deck where obviously we have a commander that is 4 pips and no colorless mana. We do have a lot of things that we can transfer this mana vault into, though, like things like Intuition, things like Wheel of Fortune, powering out smaller 2-mana rocks and things like that.
Definitely.
Yeah, you find it to be like very sufficiently powerful for all of the different things in this deck, I would imagine, because it really propels you in those sorts of. If Horribly Right, for instance, was an Intuition, this would be a really very quick hand.
Easy keep.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, Mana Vault we just treat strictly as a ritual in this list. So it's like if you can make use of it, perfect, great. If that's gonna propel you forward. Otherwise, like, you know, put it on the bottom. It's not a big deal. We need our colors of mana because this deck is mana color intensive.
All right, well, let's take a look at our 5 here. So for 5, we've got Mana Confluence, Brainstorm, Delay, Stomping Ground, Chain of Vapor, Final Fortune, and Wheel of Fortune. This one seems a little bit closer, but we're not quite powering out the Wheel of Fortune quickly. But what do you think about this one?
Yeah. 5, it's okay. With the Brainstorm and two pieces of interaction and 2 lands, I feel better about. I would keep Mana Confluence, Brainstorm, Delay, Stomping Ground, Wheel of Fortune, and bottom the Chain of Vapor and the Final Fortune. And I wouldn't feel great about it, but it would be fine.
Yeah, would you be willing to keep this one?
I would go to 4.
All right. Well, yeah. It's your deck. You're the expert here. Let's go to 4 and see what we get.
Let's see what we get. All right. Okay. Oh man, if only there was a land. God damn it.
This would be a pretty perfect 4 if there was a singular land in here.
We just needed 1 land.
We have been punished.
Damn.
So for the listeners, we got our 7 is Imperial Recruiter, Soul Ring, Chain of Vapor, Smuggler's Share, which is a card that I have not seen before. Tell me about Smuggler's Share.
So I've actually just changed out, I think 8 or 9 cards post MLC, and Smuggler Share was something that I really wanted to try in. So it says at the beginning of each end step, draw a card if an opponent drew 2 or more cards this turn, and then create a treasure token for each opponent who has had 2 or more lands enter the battlefield under their control this turn. So if someone played a fetch and cracked it, if someone rotationed or whatever, and then with a player drawing with an opponent who drew 2 or more cards, like Crom, it happens all the time, Rhystic Study, Mystic or more, being able to have a little, yeah, exactly, any Tymna deck. I feel like I've seen Tymna everywhere lately, more than I've usual. But yeah, to be able to have a way to just profit off of that passively with just a little 3-mana enchantment, I was like, it's Rhystic Study meets Esper Sentinel a bit, and I just wanted, because I had before like Windfall and Time Twister, and I wanted to try to take the deck in a direction where we wouldn't be wheeling people into fresh hands, and then give us some more passive card advantage.
Yeah, this is a deck that even though it has red in it, it struggles to take advantage of a fresh 7 as much as like a Grixis deck per se, because we're not at the point of running Rite of Flame or something like that. Like we have the Dockside to take advantage of that, but those very, very fast pieces are sort of not as good for this deck. So I can understand that. I actually really like that perspective, and especially like as we said before, like we don't have a Thrasios in the command zone. Like we need to get ways of having card and mana advantage. So I think that's a really interesting flexible spot. So rest of the hand there is Court of Calling, Force of Negation, and our beloved Dockside Extortionist. So not quite there. Very, very close. This was our 3, I think. Let's commit the Cardinal Sin and draw a card and see what it is. It's a land.
Hey.
This is why we don't commit the Cardinal Sin. Don't pay attention to that. All right.
Cardinal Sin.
All right. Let's take a look at a fresh 7 here and see what we got. So, first 7 here is Esper Sentinel, Training Center, Geist Wave, Seven's Reclamation, Chrome Mox, Command Tower, and Gaia's Cradle. This seems not too shabby. I kind of like turn 1 Esper Sentinel into possibly having an extra Chrome Mox mana.
It is interesting. I think if I were going first, I would be tempted to keep this, but we don't have a tutor, and we don't have a tutor. If the other decks are going to play really greedy, then we're going to draw 3 cards. And 3 cards is quite a bit, and we have mana to do stuff with it. Like worst case scenario, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3. So we do have 4 mana. We could power out Omnath on turn 4 or turn 3. there's nothing that I want to pitch to that Chrome Mox, so I would go ahead and get a second 7.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Graia's Cradle is basically a dead slot in this draw, and then Chrome Mox taking us down another card. We don't have anything particularly powerful like the Wheel of Fortune, etc. to power us back out, so I can see that.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at second 7. Second 7 is Noxious Revival, Mox Diamond, 7's Reclamation. I think this is Ephemerate.
Ephemerate, yeah.
Ephemerate, Archivist of Ogma, Plateau, and a Final Fortune. So I think without the second land for the Archivist, this is probably not a keep, I would assume.
Yeah, no. We don't keep this at all.
Yeah, alright, let's take a look at our 6 here. We've got Archivist of Ogma, Flusterstorm, Misty Rainforest, Chain of Vapor, Dockside Extortionist, Mystic Remora, and Felwar Stone. How do we feel about this?
Oh yeah, we're definitely keeping this, because we're gonna go, Misty Rainforest, slam that turn 1 Mystic Remora. We'll bottom...
Fox, you think it's maybe like the chain here? Or that's not really an interaction piece, though. I guess Flusterstorm. Tough call.
It is a tough call. I would bottom... depending on what the pod composition looks like, of whether or not I think I'm going to need to bounce a stacks piece, or whether I think I'm going to need to hold up earlier interaction. But I would say our land count in here is at 29, and so I often do feel pretty confident in being able to draw a second land if I need it. I think I would honestly bottom the Felwar Stone.
Yeah, that honestly makes a lot of sense to me, because on turn 2, like, if the fish is good, we're going to want to keep it unless we draw, like, specifically a Mana Crypt or a Soul Worm. We're not going to be able to get it out regardless, so I think that makes a lot of sense to me, yeah.
So yeah, I would keep this at a 6. It's a little bit greedy, but it's got 2 pieces of interaction. It's got card advantage, and it's got one of our combo pieces, and something that's going to get us basically into a winning board state from virtually nothing.
We're definitely asking for Mystic Remora to resolve and to be good in this scenario, but presumably, like, if this is the hand that we're going to keep, we're up against, like, decks that we're suspecting are going to feed into it, so I don't think it's a terribly bad plan. All right, let's take a
especially
look at
going...
our, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, especially going first or second, like, it'll be fine.
Oh, yeah,
we can definitely draw ourselves off that.
Yeah, because then we're only looking to fade, like, a mental misstep, basically. I've never seen someone Force of Will a Mystic Remora ahead of them. That seems like
for real
bad play, so yeah. Yeah, I like that. Let's take a look at another one here. Our first 7 here is Force of Will, Muddle the Mixture, Ephemerate, Ledger Shredder, Allosaurus Shepherd, Polluted Delta, and LED. Seems a little bit too sparse.
Yeah, I think we need... Yeah, our mana requirements for this are a little bit too intense, and with nowhere to really go with it. I think if the LED was another land, I would be more interested in keeping it. But as it stands, we can do better.
Yeah, I feel like turn 1 Allosaurus Shepherd into a turn 2 Ledger Shredder with Force backup is like, it's pretty defensible. It'll get you places. You'll definitely like see a lot more cards through that Ledger Shredder and play into something. But yeah, just without that second mana source, it seems a little bit iffy. Let's take a look at our second 7 here. This is Polluted Delta, Underworld Breach, Geist Wave, Chrome Mox, Flusterstorm, Windswept Teeth, and Pongify. How do we feel about this one?
We don't like the. You need to have a tutor in your opening hand for this, or something really big like a fish or a turn 1 Ristic Study, because keeping this, like, you have a little reaction or interaction which can maybe buy you a turn or 2, but it's not enough. We're not a control deck. That's not where we want to be. We're not trying to push the game into the mid range. So I think, without a tutor to go get any of our other pieces. Like, if Pongify were a line tutor, hands down, easy keep, but this isn't doing anything for us.
Sure, yeah, because the Breach provides us, like, a plan to be working towards, but this hand does not have a specific plan to make that happen. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Let's go ahead and ship this one and take a look at our 6. This is Delay, Cyclonic Rift, Hallowed Fountain, Gaia's Cradle, Gamble, Arid Mesa, and Windswept. It seems like it's probably a little bit too land heavy to want to keep.
Yeah, and the Gamble of course being a gamble, going with a 6.
This is bottoming the Cradle if we were going to keep this 6 theoretically.
Yeah, so
even then the Gamble is asking a lot.
Yeah, and there's no way to get it back. No, go to 5.
All right, let's ship it. Go to 5. We've got Plateau, Birds of Paradise, Volcanic Island, Drannith Magistrate, Spell Snare, Savannah, and Mental Misstep. This seems like a very solid 5.
Actually, I would definitely keep this at 5 because Drannith Magistrate does a lot of work. And if we're going at a 5 and we're looking at this, like that will slow down the game pretty drastically. Having very good pieces of interaction in Spell Snare and Mental Misstep, like I would feel pretty solid sitting behind this for a few turns. So
yeah,
I would
bottom. We did speak earlier that we're not a control deck here, but like you said, Drannith Magistrate allows us to slow down the game quite significantly, and we do potentially have the mana, depending on what we ship to the bottom, to cast the turn 3 Omnath, which, like, if we're slowing the game down, Omnath is a good thing to land and start drawing at least a card and present some threats to the board.
Especially with a bunch of Tymnas running around, like, it gives us a card when it ETBs, and then is a 4/4 that sits there and goes, okay, yeah, you want to attack? Sure.
So what do you think that we bottom in this scenario? Do we just go with the 2 blue spells and just go raw, just creature advantage, or what do you think?
I would keep Savannah, Birds, Volk, Drannith, and Spell Snare.
Bottom Misstep and Plateau.
Yeah, I think people might be surprised at bottoming the Misstep, but really Spell Snare and being able to hit things at CMC 2, that's going to hit a lot of counter spells. It's going to hit opponent's dock sides. It's going to hit a lot of stacks creatures. It's going to hit a lot of things that will very meaningfully impact our game plan, like Null Rod or other things that, we need to make sure that aren't coming at us. Because the one sort of big downside of this deck is that it folds to both stacks pieces that affect activated abilities of creatures and artifacts, so both the Curse Totems and the Null Rods shut down our plans pretty significantly, so we need to make sure that we have meaningful answers to those.
Spell Snare is definitely very good protection from that. My thought about keeping the Misstep, on the other hand, is that I feel like Misstep probably counters more things that are going to try to remove our Drannith, if that happens to be the linchpin in the game scenario, and I think that probably depends a lot on pod composition, but thinking about like the most popular like bouncing kill spells like Swords or Chain of Vapor or something to that effect, it would be something that came to mind, so that's an interesting thing to think about too. But I like what you said about the Spell Snare, because you're right, like the things that are going to win the game, like out from underneath us and out from underneath this Drannith Magistrate, are like Thassa's Oracle, I guess not Underworld Breach.
Yeah, exactly, Thassa's Oracle, Underworld Breach, and then, but also, like, people play Snap and Geistwave and all these other 2-mana bounce spells too, so I feel like 2 is a really good, even, well-balanced CMC to stymie.
I really like Spell Snare. I feel like it's slightly underexplored, and maybe like slightly fewer decks are on it than they should be, but it's a really powerful card. All right, so we decided to keep here. Let's take a look at a fresh 7. This one is Red Elemental Blast, Spell Snare, Chord of Calling, Ledger Shredder, Plateau, Snap, and Noxious Revival. So just not the colors that we need to cast any of these spells.
Oh, God. If that was a Volk, I would be more interested, but no.
Yeah, you might keep just based on the Volk being able to go like REB Spell Snare and just hope for the second land for Shredder.
Yeah, pretty much. But I would be
so that's like a fair amount to be able to bet on.
Yeah, and with like Chrome Mox or Mox Diamonds or other other fast mana like that. But no, we can't keep this.
Yeah, that's a good point though with the fast mana too. I guess we are probably a little bit over a third, probably to hit a free mana source within our first couple of draws. All right, let's take a look at our second 7 is Bloodstained Mire, Volcanic Island, Red Elemental Blast, Polluted Delta, Mental Misstep, Scalding Tarn, and Resculpt.
Oh no, we can't keep that. That's got no action.
At this point, I know we've got no tutors. This one is not going to do it.
It's not going to do it.
All right, let's take a look at 6 here. 6 is Tropical, Flooded Strand, Taiga, Force of Will, Breeding Pool, Force of Negation, and Command Tower. So.
Oh my God, we go from no lands to all lands. No, we're going to 5.
All right, 5. Let's see it. We got Path to Exile, Arcane Signet, Chain of Vapor, Taiga, Breeding Pool, Volcanic Island, and Steam Vents. This is our 5. This seems like not the worst 5, but it really doesn't have a plan. Yeah.
Oh no, we're going to 4.
All right, we're going to 4. Let's take a look. We've got Force of Will, Ledger Shredder, Arid Mesa, Mystic Remora, Underworld Reach, Command Tower, and Eladamri's Call. As far as the 4 goes,
this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, snap keep, right?
Snapkeep.
In my opinion, I'm thinking Ledger Shredder, Mesa, Remora, and Command Tower, just to like... Well, maybe not the Ledger Shredder, I guess, because we're going to be on an empty hand, so we want that Eladamri's Call, I'm guessing?
Yeah, so I would go Arid Mesa, Mystic Remora, Command Tower, Eladamri's Call.
So we land the turn 1 Remora, we draw some cards, and then worst comes to worst, where we can turn 2 Eladamri's Call for a turn 3 Dockside.
Yeah, exactly. We can do turn 3 Dockside. If we end up getting more lands, we can Eladamri's Call for a Spellseeker, and then our Spellseeker can pivot us to a Breach line. There are a lot of different avenues that we can take depending on what it is that we draw, and that's the thing about this deck. It is a very layered combo deck, so you're never locked into one line. It is very easy to walk back and forth between doing a creature combo and between doing our Breach plan. So you could always find your way back to which other one, depending on what kind of interaction you're expecting, or what you know people have, or the kinds of like stack pieces that are in play. So we have Eladamri's Call. It's definitely one of our most important spells in the deck. One, because it's instant speed and it puts it into your hand, which is very, very important. That's why I don't run something like a Worldly Tutors, because I need it in my hand. I cannot, having to put it on top of my deck is a bigger drawback than it initially seems.
Again, in a deck like this where we don't have Thrasios in the command zone, like putting yourself down that card and down that extra draw step for your Worldly Tutors, that's a really meaningful tempo loss for this kind of deck. So I can totally understand that. Like imagining the same hand keeping at a 4 and that Eladamri's Call as a Worldly Tutor instead, like that is
so much slower. Puts you a
really
whole turn
huge
behind.
Tempo, lost there. Like that's a very meaningful advantage to have it be both instant speed and to hand. All right, so we got our pretty solid 4. Let's take a look at another fresh 7 here. We've got Boseiju Who Endures, Path to Exile, Birds of Paradise, Arid Mesa, Lion's Eye Diamond, Ephemerate, and Flusterstorm. This seems not half bad to me, but there is no tutor, so I'm guessing it's not quite there.
Yeah, there's no tutor, there's nothing to draw cards, so we can't keep this. If we had a Spellseeker, or a way to get a Spellseeker, because we have the Spellseeker, Ephemerate, Final Fortune, on the rope reach line that we can do, but without a way to get a creature into our hands, it's just not going to do anything for us.
All right, let's take a look at second 7 here is Tropical Island, Noble Hierarch, Court of Calling, Spellseeker, Force of Will, Lotus Petal, and Red Elemental Blast. This seems like a good keep, I think.
This is a great second 7.
Talk to me about like how we're thinking about sequencing this. I guess it depends on what sort of mana sources we pull off the top.
True. So turn 1, we'll draw whatever. Actually, draw a card. It lets you draw a card. Hey, Misty Rainforest. Nice. All right. So yeah, turn 1, Tropical Island, Noble Hierarch. Turn 2, play the Misty. Play the... Ooh, and we get a Dork. Yeah, so turn 2, play the Misty, tap the Noble Hierarch, play the Birds of Paradise, and then we have play the Lotus Petal, and then I wouldn't want to deploy the Spellseeker turn 2, even though we could, because it just gives so much information.
Yeah, and we're basically just going to be landing it with no extra mana, presumably, or maybe the Lotus Petal for like REB backup, but that's not what we want.
Yeah, so I think turn 3, I think this hand definitely positions us turn 3 to meaningfully go off with interaction as backup, even probably 2 pieces.
So do we want to try to Court of Calling for Dockside first, and then go into Spellseeker line? Is that the idea?
So let's see here. I think Chord is a little bit excessive here. We don't really need it because adding that 3rd green mana requirement is a little bit awkward. I think I would want to sandbag Court of Calling in case whatever I got off of Spellseeker was countered, as to be able to sandbag that to try and go off for the next turn. I think for Spellseeker, I would go and get probably Finale of Devastation to go and get my Dockside. And then, since Dockside will probably generate 4 or 5 treasures, we can sync that and tapping Spellseeker and Dockside into our Chord in order to go and get the Emil or the Deadeye.
Okay. Wow, that's really interesting. That sounds very good. Is there any point where you would really consider pitching that Spellseeker to Force of Will, like in a non-nuclear threat scenario, or is it just too important? Yeah.
It's too important because Spellseeker goes and gets anything that can get breach, or anything in our breach line, or can go and get anything to do our Dockside Emiel line. So like Spellseeker is just an absolute linchpin, especially if you get a hand that can get Ephemerate, or that has Ephemerate, or if you get the Ephemerate with the Spellseeker and then flicker it, and you can go and get 2 more tutors, aside from doing the whole Final Fortune line.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Force of Will, like, a little bit, unfortunately, dead in this hand, but we do have REB for a little bit of backup, so that's nice. All right, so let's take a look at a fresh 7 here. We've got Lotus Petal, Underworld Breach, Sea of Clouds, Scalding Tarn, Volcanic Island, REB, and a Mox Diamond. So we've got plenty of mana generation, but just not a lot to do with it.
Yeah, let's see. We could get Omnath out on turn 2. Unfortunately, that doesn't do anything for us.
It draws a card, so let's see what 2 cards look like. I guess we get 3. Force of Will, Mental Misstep, and Finale of Devastation would be the draws, and that just doesn't seem like it's doing enough for us.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not like it's definitely nothing to balk at. So we would do like Sea of Clouds, Lotus Petal, Mox Diamond, pitch. Actually, which land would we pitch? No, we would do probably, let's see here. No, we would do Volcanic Island, Lotus Petal, Mox Diamond, pitch the Sea of Clouds. Turn 2, we could play and correct the Scalding Tarn, and that'll get us our Omnath, which would draw us our Finale on turn 2. So then turn 3, we would have 1, 2, 3 mana. It's just a little bit too tight, and actually, since we don't draw another fetch land, our mana is actually like really crunched up really tightly.
Yeah, because one of the things we've only got 3 mana, which is like obviously not enough to get our Dockside. If it was a fetch land and we had that extra 4 colors from Omnath, that would be pretty substantial.
Yeah, one of the things that is like really interesting in figuring out in this deck is actually sequencing your lands and when to crack them and when not to crack them and when to save your fetch lands to crack. Makes for really interesting play patterns and for in-game decisions, because having Omnath's ability get, on your second landfall trigger to get Sans Black Mana to your mana pool is a hugely explosive ritual. You basically get 5 mana into your mana pool, which you can then pump into Eldritch Evolution to sack Omnath, or have Finale get Dockside right off the bat with basically no investment. If we had drawn another fetch land, it would be really good, but since we don't draw one, we're kind of just a little bit stuck.
Say this was a fetch land in this scenario, we're able to add our, 5 total colors because we play a land, crack it, we get the second Omnath ETB for 4 colors, and then we can tap for a 5th.
Then we can tap the land, yeah.
We can cast our Finale X6 in that scenario, I think. Is that
not
5?
Yeah, yes.
Is that, where would that take us, do you think, in that scenario with just Omnath on board here? Do we want to even cast the Finale at this point, or do we want to save it until we have a firmer plan for what we're trying to do?
So we would do it... so actually, I would do it Finale where X is equal to 3 with holding up the Mox Diamond, and then we would get a Spellseeker. We would have the Spellseeker get an Ephemerate. We would tap the Mox Diamond for a white and Ephemerate the Spellseeker. In order to go and get something else.
We can get Brain Freeze potentially to go with our Underworld Breach.
Brain Freeze, or we can just go and we get probably a maybe an Enlightened Tutor. And then have cast that on our upkeep, put the LED on top of our deck. The Ephemerate would come off of Rebound. We would flicker Omnath to draw a card and then draw our card for turn.
Oh, that's pretty
flicker. Hot. And then we can just recast whatever from our graveyard.
Nice. That's I really have enjoyed talking with you about these lines, because I'm like familiar with the deck from the point of playing against you many times on it, but I'm not very intimately familiar with these specific lines inside of the deck. So it's very interesting to see how your brain is working on all these different things.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are so many different options, and I think that's part of what makes the deck a little bit overwhelming to people, is because there are so many different paths that you could go, and it's about like narrowing down of what's most mana efficient and what is going to give your opponents the least amount of information possible that you can give them to tip them off what you're going to. Because while we do have, a lot of interaction, there's only so much that we can do to fight against everyone. And so knowing when and how to tip your hand is one of the things that gives me the most success with the deck.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a deck that, like any sort of deck like this that is just so centric around its tutors. It seems like it's something that rewards you a lot for knowing the deck very intimately and playing it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's run through one more before we get out of here tonight. So our first 7 here is Horribly Awry, Wooded Foothills, Mana Drain, City of Brass, Red Elemental Blast, Mental Misstep, and the Wheel of Fortune. So are we keeping this based on the strength of Mana Drain anything turn 2 into turn 3 wheel?
No, we don't keep this.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Not the kind of hand that I would particularly keep either, but not being intimately familiar with how this works, you never know. All right, so our second 7 here, this one looks pretty good to me. Noble Hierarch, Esper Sentinel, Brain Freeze, Wooded Foothills, Verdant Catacombs, Force of Negation, and an Imperial Recruiter. So this seems to have just like everything that we need between ramp, card draw, and a tutor.
Oh yeah, this is perfect. Like, this is the kind of hand that we hope for. Because yeah, turn 1 we draw a card, whatever, we play and crack a fetch land, slam that Esper Sentinel. Turn 2 play the Noble Hierarch, because we wanted especially take advantage of everyone trying to load out their hands turn 1.
Yeah.
Turn 2 we can get away with playing a Dork, and then turn 3 we play the Imperial Recruiter. Everyone's got their stuff out turn 3, so we can play the Imperial Recruiter, get our dockside, make tons of stuff. Or, since we already have the Brain Freeze, we could also opt to go for Spellseeker off of the Imperial Recruiter, depending on what else is happening on the board.
That's what I was wondering in this scenario, is whether or not we go for Dockside or Spellseeker with the Recruiter. But your first thought would be Dockside just like in a vacuum?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, generally Dockside in a vacuum, because so much other stuff synergizes around it. But it's something we can get almost all of the rest of our creatures out of our deck with an Imperial Recruiter minus Emiel and Deadeye. So if not Dockside, then probably Spellseeker is the right choice to get you a tutor to get to the next step that you need to go.
That makes a lot of sense. And I guess similar question to before. Is Brain Freeze too important to us? Can we pitch it to this Force of Negation along the way? Is that an ability that we have to like make that pivot decision and just go for something else with the Imperial Recruiter rather than the Spellseeker, or do we need this Brain Freeze too much?
If someone is going to drop a Null Rod, then you fucking throw that Brain Freeze to the wind, because we are not gonna win under any circumstance with a Null Rod on the table.
Yeah. Okay. Brain Freeze is one of those spells where, like, it's obviously very powerful and the key to that Underworld Breach combo, but in and of itself, it is a very more or less useless card. It's not really something you would cast. Like, I cast it sort of haphazardly test because I get to take advantage of that extra graveyard material, but for the most part, it basically has no text on it in the scenario until we're ready to go off with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like if you need to answer something, you can answer it. But try and hold on to it if you can.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, well, cool, nice. This was super, super fun, Sage. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out and talking about some greedy keeps with me. This was great. Before we get out of here, do you want to do plugs one more time? Just let everyone know where they can find you and how they can help support you.
Yeah, so you can follow me at Staff of Sage on Twitter and everywhere on the internet. I am a professional dungeon master and a Magic the Gathering content creator, so you can catch me streaming every week over on the Venture Maidens Twitch channel, where you can see me running in and playing different tabletop RPGs. And then usually you can catch me on Saturday nights playing on Chillaxamunder over on Mental Misplay. So that's me. If you want to see all the other cool, both casual and competitive decks that I build, you can follow me on Moxfield here. Check out this deck and ask questions. Like, I love receiving questions about all of my decks that I play with Omnath and Tybalt and Bergie. And so, for all of your Storm concerns, throw me a message. I love to hear about it. I love talking about Storm. So
Awesome.
Get at me.
Well, thank you one more time, Sage, and thank you everyone for watching. We will catch you next time on Greedy Keeps. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, one of the best ways to support us is by leaving a comment and hitting that like and subscribe button. It's incredibly helpful and always appreciated. If you want to support the channel more directly, join our Patreon to catch episodes early, join our private Discord, and get some other awesome benefits. One final thank you to all of our patrons who make great content like this possible. And thank you for watching. Be good to yourself, everyone.